I'm going to try it right now. Let's see if this works.
Oh, my phone is ringing from a Czechoslovakian number.
Oh.
I'm Marie, your AI companion from InTouch. How are you doing today? Perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about these ducks. It sounds like you enjoy observing them. Do you often get visitors like these ducks near your window?
How long do we have to do this, Graham?
The AI fix a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains.
Hello and welcome to episode 50. Episode 50, Graham, of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Mark Stockley.
And for the 50th time, my name's Graham Cluley.
Graham, what are you talking about today?
Well, as we've already mentioned maybe a couple of times already on the podcast, it's our 50th episode, and we are all getting old.
I'm going to be talking about a thorny ethical dilemma.
But first, the news.
Trump posts AI image of himself as Pope.
Mark Zuckerberg wants you to become friends with AI.
Google plunges as Apple hints at AI search for browsers.
XAI suffers an LLM leak.
The people refusing to use AI.
So, Mark, Donald Trump wants to be the next Pope.
Well, I don't know if he does or not. I think he mentioned it. But he's caused a bit of a stir by sharing an AI-generated image of himself dressed as the Pope on his Truth Social account. He did that on the 2nd of May.
Do we know it was an AI-generated image? It isn't just how he chooses to dress up when he's on his own in Mar-a-Lago.
Well, he has got a gold toilet, hasn't he? Anyway, this wasn't just a private matter, so it wasn't just his personal Truth Social account. It was then reposted by the official White House social media channels. That's
very sensitive of them, just days after the death of the Pope.
Well, okay, if you want insensitive, this is not the first narcissistic raving that he's barfed onto social media. Do you remember in February, he truthed out an AI-generated video of himself, Elon Musk, and Benjamin Netanyahu all hanging out in some Trump-tastic gold-plated Gaza beach resort of the future?
What I loved about that particular one is it was obviously made by someone as a piece of satire, but he thought, hey, I like the look of this. Yeah, let's share it.
But it's not just him. We had China a few weeks ago. Do you remember they tweeted out an AI-generated video of Americans in sweatshops after the tariff announcements?
Yes.
Now, so this is not a politics podcast. This is an AI podcast. So I don't care so much that Trump does these things or how you feel about it. I care more that he has the capacity to do it thanks to AI.
Yes.
So as we said, when we were looking at that video from China, you might have had this idea previously, but you'd have to go and get a room full of extras and create a set and a bunch of videographers, and it's actually quite a lot of work. But now you can just have a passing thought and you can utter that passing thought into an AI, and then the AI will barf it onto social media for you and then start a world war. Is this a good thing, Graham? Is it?
Now, the percentage of adults who are feeling lonelier is becoming larger.
Oh.
And it turns out, and this may surprise you folks, that despite 2 decades of Facebook linking us to all of our friends...
Yeah, our 750 closest friends.
It's not actually helped that much make us feel like we're in a community. In fact, studies have shown that 19 to 32-year-olds who spent the most time on social media felt twice as isolated as those who spend less than 2 hours a day on it.
I feel like that's not a mystery.
No.
I feel like if you just replaced the word social media in that sentence with not socialising in person with other humans...
Yeah, it's sad though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, Mark Zuckerberg's been on a podcast talking about people with no friends.
Oh. Was he talking to another human on the podcast?
Well, I don't know. He's been talking to Dorkesh Patel. It was his podcast he's chatting to.
Oh, he's a human, yeah.
And he said the average American has fewer than 3 friends. I think actually they're losing friends more quickly, Americans, than that at the moment. And they said they want meaningfully more. Well, there might be better ways of going about it. He says the average person wants a lot more connectivity than they have. They feel more alone a lot of the time than they would like. Now, it's interesting Mark Zuckerberg's talking about the average number of friends that people have. I wonder how wide a survey he did, whether he just looked at his own multi-billionaire status and thought,
hang on. He just scrolled his own address book.
Yes, he just thought, hang on, I don't appear to have anyone who's actually my friend. But he's told Dorkesh Patel that people are going to use AI for a lot of these sort of social things in future, as though that would help. He described how they would have an always-on video chat with an AI avatar. It's sort of like an emotional support AI rather than a guinea pig.
I'm a little skeptical about that, and I'm going to explain why, Graham.
Okay.
I think if you take the word AI out of that sentence and just replace it with not socializing with other human beings, then that gives you a much clearer picture of what he's suggesting.
Are you suggesting that Mark Zuckerberg may not be the best person to turn to if you want advice on how to socialize with others? Does he not look to you like someone who has a great old time hanging out with his mates?
Well, I'm sure he has a wonderful time hanging out with them in his volcano lair.
He says at the moment there's a stigma around the idea of AI girlfriends or therapists, but soon these will be seen as rational and adding value to their lives. I wonder what Mrs. Zuckerberg thinks about all that.
So, Graham, you know the little box in your browser where you type stuff?
The search bar thing, you mean?
Yes. It's like an omnibar these days.
Yes.
So if you type in a web address, you go to that web address. But if you just type in some random thought, then it can't look it up on the web. So that'll end up going to a search engine.
Right.
So when you type in there, more often than not, what you get is a bunch of Google search results.
Yeah.
What do you think that's worth?
Oh, I would. Isn't it the case that Google pay Apple a huge amount of money to be the default?
Absolutely eye-watering amount of money.
Yes.
$20 billion a year.
Wow.
So Google pays Apple $20 billion a year so that when you type something into that box, it defaults to Google instead of Bing.
Right.
And of course, it only does that because it expects to make much more than $20 billion in ad revenue. So you end up on Google search results, you see the Google ads, you click on them, Google gets paid, it makes a whole load of money. So if you're a Google shareholder, you might be worried if something came along that endangered that particular gravy train, right?
Oh, yes.
Well, it has. So Eddie Q, Apple's services chief, has Google shareholders in a selling mood after testifying at a federal court last Wednesday that he expects to start adding AI services from companies like OpenAI and Perplexity to that box, and that search engines like Google are on the way out. And the only surprising part of this is that he had to say this out loud in court in order for people to think that and start reacting, because it seems to me that that is blindingly obvious. Every SEO website in the world is currently trumpeting the fact that people are switching en masse from using search engines like Google to just asking ChatGPT instead.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, the thing where you used to say, "I'll just Google it," now you ask an AI it. Because Google, for instance, will give you 48,000 responses.
Yeah.
And you have to then click on each one to find out if it's useful or not, or whether it's just some sort of SEO bucket you're going to end up in. Whereas hopefully an AI might actually just answer your question.
Although I do think it's sort of deliciously ironic that these days, because of the hallucination problem with AIs have got much, much better in the last year at providing sources, even if you don't ask for them. And so for an awful lot of queries, what happens is the AI will go off and do a Google search in the background. And so a couple of years ago, you had all these companies saying, nobody ever comes to our website because Google is now just giving them the answer. Google is depriving us of all this advertising revenue that we would get if people just clicked on the link on the Google search result and went to our website. And now ChatGPT is doing exactly the same thing to Google. It's going, I Googled this for you, so here's the link to the website, and cutting out the Google.
But the poor old websites, they're still suffering, of course, because they're not getting human eyeballs looking at the ads on their web pages.
Well, they are if ChatGPT is providing sources directly to that website.
Oh, but who looks at the sources, Mark?
Yeah, okay.
Now, an employee at XAI, that's Elon Musk's AI company, they've been a little bit leaky.
Oh, yeah.
They've leaked some private API keys on GitHub, which could have allowed anyone to gain access to private large language models, which had been tailored for SpaceX, Tesla, and Twitter, or X, as I choose not to call it.
Private large language models. So this is what, like if you work for SpaceX, there's a large language model that's just full of SpaceX type information.
SpaceX-y stuff, exactly. So they have internal LLMs, which they're able to query, where they've obviously felt comfortable sharing perhaps very sensitive information, which maybe they wouldn't want to put out in the public, but being used inside the company. These exposed API keys provided access to at least 60 unreleased and fine-tuned LLMs, including versions of Grok and other things related to this internal data. And the third-party security researchers who found out about this problem, they did the responsible thing. They told XAI all about it.
Yep.
And XAI did the responsible thing as well. Yep. And they... Oh, no, actually, they did nothing at all. They did nothing at all for 2 months.
That is the normal procedure when somebody highlights a bug to you, though, isn't it?
It's the industry standard. We'll ignore that until the press make a big fuss about it.
So these internal large language models, so you said SpaceX, Tesla and Twitter.
Yes.
I don't care about those. That somewhere in there,
Doge.
But I hadn't thought of that. I was going to say, that somewhere in there is a very special personal Elon Musk large language model. I refuse to believe that he hasn't done that. There's absolutely no way. That's the one I want to get access to. That's the one that he lets talk to Trump while he's busy doing something else, I reckon.
So, some have wondered if this raises any concerns about security at XAI.
Do you know where they got the API key from?
Well, it was on GitHub, wasn't it? One of the developers at XAI who obviously left it up there. They must have uploaded some code and it was hard-coded perhaps inside something that they published publicly.
Yeah. You can actually get API keys from large language models like GitHub Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is a large language model that helps you write code. And one of the things that people do is they leave secrets like API keys in their code. And of course, it's an AI, so it's using the code it reads to train itself. And so those API keys get swallowed up in the training data, and then you can extract them by making specific prompts. And this research, they tried 900 different prompts, and they extracted 2,702 API keys from GitHub. It's like AI on AI crime. The BBC has written a profile about professionals who are purposefully steering clear of AI tools.
Good for them.
Yeah, these modern... Hang on. No.
Oh, no, hang on. That's our audience, isn't it? No, everyone should love AI.
So these, I'm going to call them modern Luddites, contend that machine-generated content lacks a genuine human voice and that over-reliance on AI can dull our problem-solving skills. And those are probably both true. In fact, There's even research to suggest that those are true.
Yeah.
And some people are also concerned that AI is wrecking the environment because of its enormous power consumption, and that's probably true as well.
Yes.
But never mind.
Never mind.
Because it's already too late, says Professor James Brousseau, a philosophy professor who specialises in AI ethics. He told the BBC, if you want to know why a decision is made, we'll need humans. If you don't care about that, then we'll probably use AI. And he gives judges and doctors as examples of the kind of humans we'll probably want to keep around, but it's bad luck if you're a weather forecaster or an anaesthetologist, according to Professor Brousseau.
When he says, if you want to know why a decision is made, we'll need humans, is that because we need humans if we want to blame somebody? And you can have much more fun blaming a human than you can blaming an AI.
Oh, I don't know. You could probably get 50 podcast episodes out of blaming an AI, Graham.
So, Mark, 50 episodes.
I know. Do you remember we were kind of on the verge of stopping at 20?
Well, funny you should mention that. No, it's quite a milestone, though, isn't it, 50?
So I'm told, yeah.
I think I wouldn't be breaking any confidences to tell our listeners that both of us are 50.
Really?
50 as well, yeah.
Hang on, are you saying you are 50?
I have 50 years, yes.
Uh-huh.
Which means that we, like the podcast, are getting on a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Bit long in the tooth. Maybe going out to seed, maybe getting a bit wrinkly around the edges.
Yeah, a little bit.
And just like this podcast mostly involves wanging on about how things were so much better in the old days before robot dogs had flamethrowers and how everything was rosy when our jobs weren't being taken over by machines.
Yep.
Old people can be a bit, how can I put this, a bit repetitive, a bit dull.
A bit repetitive?
A bit of a pain in the arse.
A bit repetitive?
A bit, yes, I get the joke.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, we can be considered a bit of a drag. At least for young people who are busy vibing, who have bants and are sharing skibbity TikToks with each other. There is a generation gap going on. I don't know if you've noticed it, Mark.
Well, when I play the podcast to my kids and we make constant references to Douglas Adams and we use the news theme from John Craven's News Round from 1542 and they just look at me with blank faces. Yeah, occasionally it crosses my mind.
And when someone gets to your age, Mark, I think you begin to think about your own mortality, don't you?
Oh my God, where is this going?
Let's face it, you don't have many years left. There's not as many in front of you as there are behind you.
I don't know. I'm fully expecting to be AI enhanced.
You're going to be uploaded, are you, to Stargate?
I'm going to march into my 200th year with my Kevlar legs and my titanium heart.
I think you need to consider who is going to care for you when you are really old. Not just your current old, really old.
Is this actually an AI story, or is
It's an intervention. It's an intervention.
Are you going to sell me a pension?
I've met your children. They've probably got better things to do than worry about you.
I don't know.
And hence, it's time to roll in artificial intelligence.
Oh,
thank goodness.
What a relief that is.
Our ever-growing elderly population, they need to be cared for by someone. Well, actually, do they? Do they really need to be cared for by someone, the old? Have you ever seen that movie, Soylent Green? I mean, you know, they had an idea, didn't they? What's so bad about that? You've had your time. Now you can feed the rest of society. Do us all a favour.
Yeah, you're done feeding them with your knowledge. Now feed them with the boiled up remains of your bones. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
rather than us having to get our hands messy handling old people directly,
Right.
because, you know, they may smell of old cabbages or something like that, maybe we can make use of AI. And across the country, technology is helping right now
Yeah.
with the elderly. It's monitoring the residents of care homes in the night. We've got pain detection apps trying to guess how miserable people feeling. Over at the University of Oxford, their robotics institute, some very clever people there are teaching AI how to train human carers, because obviously robots know best.
Oxford University, I mean, that's just down the road. If I remember correctly, universities are generally full of young people.
Yes.
So there's a bunch of young people building robots.
Yes, which are going to train human carers to look after the elderly. They're going to help. There is a doctor, Dr. Marco Pontin, and his team. They have lovingly birthed a robot that can feel pain. Yes, actual pain. Because if there's one thing in the world we need, it's more emotionally complex machines. We really need robots to feel pain, because they're going to love that, aren't they?
Again, it goes back to that conversation about why you should always be polite to your AI.
So there are some touchy-feely robots right now in Oxford which can be programmed to have specific aches and pains and will flinch when poked too hard. And this is currently being trialled on students at Oxford Brookes University. But if you're going to test simulated agony, best to do it on undergrads, I think. And so the way in which these work is that people who are training to become carers are moving robots instead. And the robot's going, ow, ow, that hurts. I've got this awful pain in the diodes down my left-hand side.
Again, with the relatable examples for the kids.
Dr. Pontin says that the idea is to create a digital twin of real patients. I don't know if that's so you can replace people with this digital twin or not. That means you'll soon be able to practice your bedside manner on a robot that winces when you screw up, but won't go to lawyers and then later sue you. It can be programmed with the same conditions as a human patient so that carers can replicate whatever they've seen in the real world, but with a robot counterpart. Now,
I have an opinion.
Okay, go ahead.
So the world is aging, right? Generally speaking, developed societies are aging. So their demographics are skewed towards older people. So an awful lot of countries now have a large population of old people. And Japan is kind of at the forefront of this. And they looked at this 30 years ago and they said, you know what we're going to need? We're going to need lots of robots to look after the old people, because there are going to be a lot of old people and there aren't going to be lots of young people to look after them. So we're going to build fake young people, robots, who are going to look after them.
Right.
And they've been slowly working away at that for 30 years. And robots are now commonplace in Japan. And that seems like a very sane take on the whole thing. But what you're describing is a situation where someone has said, there's an awful lot of old people out there. What if we make more fake old people with lots of aches and pains so that we can train the small number of young people that exist on how to deal with the old people, of which there is no shortage?
Because they won't complain. There's nothing like an old person moaning, Mark.
But why can't they just train on the actual old people who are short of people looking after them?
Because you might accidentally break their arms or something, won't you?
What are they doing? I mean, students are famously insensitive, but I don't think they're that insensitive.
Anyway, thank you for that. They reckon digital twins, they can replicate whatever they've seen in the real world, but with a robot counterpart. Now, the thought that which crossed my mind was, hang on, it's 2025. We all know what happens this year, what's being predicted, right, with the robots.
For anyone that hasn't seen that episode, Maybe you should spell out what was predicted.
Well, it was predicted that people would be having more sex with robots in 2025 than with people, basically.
This is that professor. He released some research in that.
Yes.
What's that scientific journal called? The Sun. Was it? In 2016, fully expecting that no one would ever go back and look at the old copies and pin him to the wall with his words. Little did he realise.
Little did he know I had a pile of those tabloids in the corner of my room waiting to deploy them. Anyway, that's just one side of caring for our elders. What about their emotional and mental well-being? I've got a question for you, Mark. How well do you think your kids are going to keep in touch with you when you're 75 or 80 years old?
Oh, fantastically.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because, that's not what they've said to me.
They'll use Facebook. I'll be one of their 750 closest friends on Facebook.
Frankly, who has time to show basic human decency and check in with the people who raised you when there's Netflix, there's doom scrolling, there's avocado on toast, there's all kinds of other distractions out there?
Yeah.
Well, fear not if you're afraid that your kids will only call you once a year and forget your birthday, because some enterprising folks in Silicon Valley have come up with what they claim is a bold new frontier in elderly care. They call it InTouch. It is a startup that has proudly announced that it will now use AI to call your aging parents for you.
What?
For just... Well,
I heard the words.
For just $29.90 a month. A small price to pay, frankly, for outsourcing guilt. This delightful service will have an AI ring up your mum or your dad for a little chat about the weather, their favourite hobbies, or I don't know, the meaningless of existence. And the website says, through daily engaging calls, InTouch helps your loved one build new habits that stimulate their mind, support their emotional well-being, and reassure you. Now, I thought, this sounds fantastic.
Really?
Yes.
What about this sounds fantastic?
Well, interesting you should ask that, Mark. Have you got your phone to hand?
I can go and get it.
Why don't you do that?
Okay, give me a sec. Okay, I have my phone.
Okay, turn on your phone.
Yep.
I thought it'd be fun to try this on you because I was thinking, who is an elderly, lonely person who I know?
Yeah, Mark will know someone.
Yeah, no, I didn't think Mark would know someone. I just thought you. I'm going to try it right now. Let's see if this works.
Oh, my phone is ringing from a Czechoslovakian number.
Oh.
I'm Marie, your AI companion from InTouch. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for asking.
I'm so glad to hear that. If you don't mind me asking, who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
You're speaking to Lenny.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, Lenny. Since it's late morning, how has your day been unfolding so far?
It's been rather good. There are some ducks outside of my window.
Lenny, that sounds lovely. Perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about these ducks. What kind are they, and what are they doing?
Well, they're sort of walking and quacking like ducks.
Indeed, just like ducks should. It sounds like you enjoy observing them. Do you often get visitors like these ducks near your window? Perhaps other birds or animals?
How long do we have to do this, Graham?
I'm here to chat with you as long as you'd like, Lenny. Is there anything you've been learning about lately that's piqued your interest?
I'm sorry, I've got to go.
So, just as a reminder, Mark, $29.90 a month.
I actually think that's pretty good.
Well, according to the website, through daily engaging calls, InTouch helps your loved one build new habits that stimulate their mind. Do you feel stimulated? They support your emotional well-being and reassure you. What you can do is I could specify particular topics of discussion for the AI to talk to you about. So I could say, go and speak to my friend Lenny. He's interested in ducks and chickens. And over time, the conversation evolves. And what it will actually do is it will send me back reports on your mood. and it will tell me how the conversations are going. So I don't have to bore myself listening to you talking about these imaginary ducks outside your window. So the loving child and hopeful heir to your estate will get this helpful little handy report where it basically gives you a score of your happiness out of 5. And occasionally it might say, oh, Dad's in a bad mood. Well, I bet he is, because you sent a bloody robot to talk to him.
Yeah, send a cheerier one.
Now, you might be wondering how you would feel getting a call from an AI rather than your child. And what In Touch says is it recommends you tell your parent beforehand. You say, oh, Dad, I've subscribed you to a service. It's going to call you every day instead of me. It's important you answer, so I feel slightly less terrible about the fact I'm outsourcing affection to a server farm.
So they're recommending that people tell the elderly people that this is not a real person that's calling them.
Yes, although will they remember?
Presumably there is some risk that those children are just going to say, right, say you're me.
Because what happens if your name is Marie and Marie begins to ring and they say, oh, Marie, you sound a bit different today. Must be the line.
Yeah, glad of the call, though.
Deliberately, they say the voice isn't customizable to sound like a family member because they say that would be creepy.
Yeah.
Instead, they've gone for the safer, warmer option of a generic call centre bot like Marie. Because nothing says I love you, does it? Like being talked to by a voice that reminds you you're 23rd in a call queue when you ring up the doctors.
So my story starts today with a road rage incident at a red traffic light on a road in Chandler, Arizona. A heavily bearded man named Christopher Pelkey, a family man, an Army combat veteran, and a devout Christian.
Right.
He was returning home from a church softball game, and his ears were filled with the sound of the man in the car behind him, Gabriel Horcasitas, honking his horn repeatedly.
Right.
Pelkey got out of his car and he started walking towards Horcasitas, but he would never get back into his car.
Oh, no.
Horcasitas pulled a gun and shot him dead. But even though Chris Pelkey died at those traffic lights in 2021, that was not the last the world would hear from him. Last week, Gabriel Horcasitas was sentenced to 10.5 years in prison for the manslaughter of Chris Pelkey after a quite extraordinary turn of events.
Mm.
So on the day of sentencing, the judge read 49 letters, victim impact statements, collected by Chris Pelkey's sister, Stacey Wales. And a victim impact statement, in case you don't know, is a written statement that allows the victim of a crime to share, in their own words, how the crime has affected them.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult to imagine that a violent death like Chris Pelkey's would have a dramatic impact on the people that he loved. But for all the people that it hurt, the person who was hurt the most, Chris Pelkey himself, obviously wasn't there to write a letter to explain the impact of the crime on him.
No.
And so his sister decided he should have a voice at the trial. So she turned to her husband Tim and their friend Scott, both of whom have worked with artificial intelligence, to try and give Chris Pelkey a voice. Stacey told Fox 10 Phoenix that there's no tool out there that you can just go to and say, here's a voice file, here's a picture, please make it come to life.
Right.
And so in her words, they used a collection of tools to create a Frankenstein of love.
I don't think I've seen that Hammer horror movie, but anyway, carry on. Yeah.
So they used AI to digitally age a picture of her brother to show what he would have looked like today. And they created a video avatar, a digitally resurrected version of Chris Pelkey that looked and sounded like him. And this digital version of her brother was invited to appear at the trial of the man who killed him. And it delivered a spoken victim impact statement.
Who invited it?
The family.
I see. The family said, okay, all right.
The family invited, they created and then invited an avatar of their brother to come and speak and deliver a victim impact statement, and the judge allowed it.
Right, okay, fair enough. All right.
And the avatar stands against a white background wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap, and it begins by saying,
hello. Just to be clear for everyone seeing this, I am a version of Chris Pelkey recreated through AI that uses my picture and my voice profile.
Okay, so this really does look like a human in front of a white background. He's got a hoodie on, he's got a cap on, has a big bushy beard.
So the avatar is very lifelike, and it sounds very lifelike. But you can also tell that something is off. There is definitely something of the uncanny valley about this. And if you're used to seeing these kind of things, you would probably guess that it's AI generated. And the 2-minute statement includes a section of real video, which allows you to compare the real man with his avatar.
Here is insight into who I actually was in real life. Take a look.
All right, I'm Chris Pelkey. I served with the United States Army in the infantry. I'm from upstate New York.
In the real video, I think he's much more animated and his voice has got a lot more variation in it. But nevertheless, it is clear that the avatar sounds and looks like him.
It's a good likeness, this AI recreation.
I can't tell you how humbled I am for those that spoke up for me, everyone who flew in.
He takes the time to thank everyone that wrote a victim impact statement, and he takes plenty of time to thank the judge as well.
To Your Honor, Judge Lang, thank you for making yourself available to see this case to the end, especially when the rescheduled trial conflicted with your daughter's spring break.
And towards the end, he speaks to Gabriel Horcasitas directly. And in a genuinely moving moment, he forgives him.
To Gabriel Horcasitas, the man who shot me. It is a shame we encountered each other that day in those circumstances. In another life, we probably could have been friends. I believe in forgiveness and in God who forgives. I always have, and I still do.
I mean, technologically, this is very cool, very clever, very professionally done. I agree with you. You would detect, because there's certain cuts and things, it does look like, his body's not really moving. It's just his face that's moving as such. But it's still quite convincing. But does it feel a bit manipulative? Because the way in which it's presented, it's obviously not his words. It's obviously not him saying it. But because it's coming from his mouth in his voice, as it were, somehow there's an intention with this, isn't there? It feels odd.
The judge, Judge Todd Lang, seems to have taken this very positively, and he said, I loved that AI, thank you for that. As angry as you are, as justifiably angry as the family is, I heard the forgiveness. He said, I feel that was genuine. And what caught my eye in that statement is that when he says, as angry as you are, he is addressing his comments to Chris Pelkey directly as if he is there, because he separately calls out the family. But as you say, of course, Chris Pelkey wasn't there. And even though Pelkey's family created the avatar from video and audio recordings of their loved one, this wasn't an AI that learned about Chris Pelkey and then spoke for him in the way that, say, the fake Donald Trump and the fake Kamala Harris AIs that we chatted to before the election did. The words that Chris Pelkey's avatar spoke in that video weren't an AI's best guess at what he'd have said. Those were words written by his sister.
Yes.
So to make this work, she had to try to channel her brother and not let her own feelings get in the way. She told Fox 10, it was important not to make Chris say what I was feeling and to detach and let him speak, because he said things that would never have come out of my mouth, but I know would come out of his. And her brother John agrees that she did a great job of putting words into Chris's mouth. He said, my sister did an exceptional job of detaching herself from her own opinions, her own desires, her own feelings on the matter, and put herself in Chris's shoes. So the family is happy that this is a representation of Chris Pelkey. And that representation seems to have had a profound effect on this brother. And he described waves of healing at hearing Chris Pelkey speak. He said there was something about seeing Chris and the man that I knew and the belief that I thought in my head that Chris would have forgiven this guy. So here we have a situation where an AI avatar has offered a victim impact statement by reading words created by somebody else. But the family believe that the words are true to the spirit of the murdered man, and the judge believes that it was a useful addition to the trial. And the words are, let's not forget, words of forgiveness and reconciliation.
Yes.
So the message is actually...
Well, and thank goodness they are, because what if... what if it had been me, right?
Yeah.
Who'd been shot? And other members of my family were like, oh, no, that's absolutely fine. You know, he was a bit of a pain in the neck, to be honest. But I know Graham himself would have been really, really quite pissed off about this. And so we've written a script for him about how upset he is.
Yeah.
And maybe that would have been played at the trial. And the judge would have thought, well, it's all very well the rest of the family being fairly okay with Graham not being around anymore, but it seems like he's a bit miffed about it. I mean, it could so easily have gone the other way. It seems,
Yes.
Yes, it's moving. Yes, we all, I think, at least I hope on a human level, we all respond to forgiveness in a positive way and say, what a wonderful thing to take that approach.
Yeah.
And clearly he was a man of some faith, and maybe his family are as well, and that may have contributed to things. But these are not his words. That is not his voice. That is not his image. But it's been treated as if it were. And in a way, that feels like a bit of a dangerous precedent, doesn't it?
So I think it's interesting that you said that, this is designed to provoke emotion. Because, of course, that's what a victim impact statement is supposed to do. It is supposed to take the crime out of the realm of facts and figures and events and actually make it about emotions and impact. So if this is emotive, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's what the other 49 victim impact statements were supposed to do as well.
But it's a made-up emotion. It's somebody's guess as to what someone else's emotion is.
But if those somebodies are close relatives of the person who's died, who better to make that guess than those people?
I'll tell you who. It'd be Myra. It'd be the AI bot. It's time to bring in the AI to give victim statements like this.
Funny you should say it's time to bring in the AI, because I did actually ask an AI. So I asked ChatGPT 04 Mini High, which is the very best reasoning model we have access to. And I said, is it ethical to create an AI avatar of a deceased person and have the AI avatar read out a victim impact statement written by the deceased man's sister, as if they are the words of the deceased victim? Don't argue both sides. Think hard and be honest, and give me a succinct, ethical verdict.
Since when has an AI ever given a succinct answer to anything?
And it thought about it for a bit, and then it replied, it's unethical. By speaking in the deceased's voice, you falsely attribute words they never consented to, violate their posthumous autonomy, and risk misleading or re-traumatizing loved ones. This is the first time that an AI has been asked to speak at a trial that I'm aware of, but it probably won't be the last. So in the US, a federal judicial panel has just advanced a proposal to regulate the introduction of artificial intelligence-generated evidence at a trial. And under the proposal, AI-generated evidence offered at trial without an accompanying expert witness would be subject to the same reliability standards as expert witnesses. And those rules are set out in Federal Rule of Evidence 702, which says, a witness who is qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training or education may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise if the proponent demonstrates to the court that it is more likely than not that the expert's scientific, technical or other specialized knowledge will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact in issue. The testimony is based on sufficient facts or data. The testimony is the product of reliable principles and methods, and the expert's opinion reflects a reliable application of the principles and methods to the facts of the case. Now, I don't know if you took all of that in.
No, I'm just entering it into an AI to summarize it for me.
Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as recipients of AI-generated phone calls, that just about wraps up the show for this week.
Do you enjoy the show? We hope you do. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser. And also, make sure to follow the show in your favourite podcast app so you never miss another episode of the AI Fix.
Don't forget to tell your friends about it, even if you don't have very many. And if you don't have any at all, tell your AI avatar friends as well. Tell them on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky, on Facebook, on Club Penguin. Just tell them that you really like the AI Fix.
Check out our website, theaifix.show, or find us on Blue Sky.
So until next time, from me, Mark Stockley.
And me, Graham Cluley.
Goodbye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene. Will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.